she is.
That thing took 4 months to get to me.
Well, somebody had sent me a Christmas card in December. And Maria, I just got it late last month.
Like
You know,
Sarah?
everybody out here.
Say anything?
It's just.
You know what? Good
And I
things.
told her the first one was like everybody else.
Exactly. Good, how are you? Good, good. You sleeping? I know. It's okay though, Zach. How old is she now?
Will be 7 months on
Yeah, you got a while.
I guess, I don't know if he has forgot if he's planning on being here. I haven't heard from him, but we got a board. So, we guess, get started.
You just have to make sure you do both thermostats, because they're not tied together, but thermostat, that one.
Wait a minute.
Okay, did you get this one? That's right.
It is warm in here. Is Eric joining us for the meeting?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome. Yes. Yes.
Oh, my God. Well, they tested me for everything, said I had nothing.
Good evening. We're going to call our meeting to order. I would ask, please, if you have cell phones, to please turn them off at this time or put them on silence. We will stand and have pledge of allegiance by Mayor Pro Tem Blunt and prayer by Councilmember Reed.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you would like to pray with us, would you please remain standing? Dear God of us all, we thank you for this day, a day that you have made, a day that we shall all rejoice and be glad in. We thank you for the opportunity to serve the citizens of the city of Madison. We thank you for the agenda that has been set before us. We thank you that you will give us wisdom, knowledge, and understanding to make the right decisions based on the citizens. Amen.
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 All our council members are present except one tonight. I'm not sure if he's on the way or not. That is special presentations. Madam Clerk, we have, I don't think so. Consent agenda, approval of minutes for our work session of February the 2nd, 2024, and regular meeting of February the 12th, 2024. A donation of services for sprinkler work by fire department and committee appointments for city attorney, municipal court judge, and city solicitor. We get a motion and a second to approve these items on our consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Are there any more discussion? All in favor, show of hands. Opposers, none. Vote unanimously. Thank you so much. Zoning hearing. Public hearing, Greg Bayard, Carmichael Commons, 2LP, Madison Bypass Holding LLC, 036E008, portions thereof, R4 to PRD. Attachments, Molly, you become?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I would need to recuse myself from this. I received a donation for Spread Love of Georgia Incorporated from Mr. Bayard, and I need to recuse myself at this time.
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks for letting us know, Councilman. Okay, we're ready where you are, Molly. Go
Thank
ahead.
you so much. I'm going to make sure I speak into this microphone the whole time.
Well, it's really good to be back in front of you all. I'm very excited for tonight. I was looking forward to it last month and I didn't get to, so I'm looking forward to it tonight. Greg Bayard, on behalf of Madison Bypass Holdings LLC, is seeking a map amendment to rezone 16.97 acres of 036E008 from small lot residential district, or R4, to a planned residential district, or PRD. Public comment has been filed as of the date of this meeting and was included in the corresponding staff report. 036E008 is an approximately 104-acre lot of record located between Carmichael Road to the north, Cox Road to the east, Lions Club Road to the south, and Eatonton Road to the west. It is undeveloped and zoned R4 and Estate Lot Residential District, or R. The applicant requests rezoning to a PRD to develop a 40-unit mixed-income, single-family residential development. The applicant requests a number of alternative dimensional requirements and proffers corresponding benefits to the community, which I'll go over in just a moment in detail. It does appear the proposed exceptions and variances from existing development standards will achieve the itemized creative design goals and can be offset as necessary by mitigating conditions or amenities. So you'll see here a table at the top is the alternative dimensional requirements requested. The first column is the requirement, so we have lot area minimum, rear yard setback, and lot coverage maximum. The second column is R4, that's the current zoning. Those are the requirements within our zoning ordinance. So 0.25 acres of lot area minimum, 25-foot setback rear yard, and 40% lot coverage maximum. The first site plan, it was the initial site plan that was included in the application, requested a reduction to 0.10 acres of lot area, 15-foot setback in the rear yard, and an increase in the lot coverage to 42%. I want to be clear that that 42% is per parcel, not the site as a whole, as we'll go over in just a moment. There's actually a reduction in impervious surface overall, but there's an increase in the lot coverage here of 2%. And then that second site plan, and I do want to be clear about that second site plan, it was developed as a response to comments from the Planning and Zoning Commission. It does not supersede or take the place of Site Plan 1. It is simply a second site plan development area that you can consider for tonight. So you can consider Site Plan 1, Site Plan 2, or some other modification thereof. But that Site Plan 2, the reduction or the dimensional requirement alternatives are an approximately 0.16 acre lot area, and I say approximately because those aren't all 0.16 acres as you see in the staff report. You have a listing of what each of those are, but on average is a 0.16 acre. The 15-foot rear yard setback remains, and there's no lot coverage maximum increase being requested for that. You also have two tables in your staff report that I've combined here, which shows what you currently have on the ground: Walker Rose Lane, Town Walk Circle, original site plan, which is obviously not on the ground but has been approved, Candler Lane and Markham's Hill, and where Prior Farms would sit. Site Plan 1 there at the top, 0.10 acres, and Site Plan 2 between Town Walk Circle and Candler Lane at 0.16. The community benefits that we described. Again, thought I'd put it all on a table here for you to look at. Those benefits are off to the left in that first column: woodlands, green space, impervious surface reduction, and recreational equipment purchase. Site Plan 1 comes with 5 acres of uncut woodland, 11.6 acres of green space total, that does include the woodlands, a 49% reduction in impervious surface, and a commitment to $50,000 in cash for the purchase of recreational equipment for the new 4-acre park that would go along Carmichael Road. Site Plan 2 is similar the same in the woodlands uncut area of 5 acres. It is 9.1 acres of preserved green space. That is a reduction there from 11.6, but that does also include the 5 acres of woodland. An impervious surface reduction of 34%, and the promise of $35,000 in cash for the purchase of recreational equipment. Both of these site plans would include the reduction in site clearing and sodded area, as well as increase the efficiency of public service delivery and maintenance. Now I'm just going to go through a whole lot of site plans for you all, and we can go back to any of them that you'd like to see. So this is the site plan for the conventional zoning. This is R4, what is currently zoned. These are the 40 acres on that site. Sorry, 40 lots on that site. This is the master plan of that, so you see Carmichael Commons to the north there. And then it says Carmichael Commons too, that's Prior Farms, that's what's before you today. Again, this is under the current R4 zoning. This is the initial site plan that was provided. This is the .10 lot size. You can see the woodland area to the west, the additional green space there to the south. This is the master plan of that with Carmichael Commons to the north and Prior Farms to the south. This is a street view of that plan. This is giving you an idea a little bit of the setbacks. This is site plan 2. Again, this is the site plan that was proffered as response to the commission, the Planning Commission's concerns. This brings you up to 0.16 acres approximately of lot size. You can see that same 5-acre woodland to the east and the open space to the south there. Here it is in the master plan view. It's a little hard to see there on the south side, but Carmichael Commons to the north, Prior Farms to the south. Here is that street view. Here is a side-by-side street view comparison. So again, site plan 1 is at the top there. That is the 0.10 lot size. Site plan 2 is to the bottom. That is the average of 0.16 lot size. And these are the conditions I would recommend adding to an approval or a reasoning to add to a denial. Obviously, those don't have to go there, but that is staff's recommendation. And happy to answer any questions now or later. And these are the same as those conditions and reasonings provided in your staff report.
I have a question for Molly, if I could, Mayor.
Sure, go ahead.
And maybe this is for Mr. Bayard as well, but what has happened in, I believe, the past 7 months that has led us to have a zoning change from what was approved 7 months ago under R4?
I believe there was a reason for a funding application went in that required the R4 zoning. And there is an opportunity now, timeline-wise and funding-wise, to extend that and request this PRD, which I can let Greg speak to a little bit more in terms of details, but I know it had to do with the funding source and the timelines that they were bound by.
Okay, there are no more questions for Molly. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll start our public hearing. Each side will have 15 minutes. If there are anyone who would like to speak for this change, if please come forward at this time. Greg?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Do I need to sign in?
State your name and just, I don't know if you have
Yes,
Okay.
Greg Byard with Parallel Housing, 198 Boulevard, Athens, Georgia.
okay.
A couple of items that there seemed to be some some confusion over that we'd heard throughout the course of this process. One, there seems to be a feeling that this is about whether or not we build the 40 houses. We can do that by right. This is really just a question of, is it going to be a clear-cut 17-acre complete clear-cut, or are we going to do a 5-acre preservation with 2 versions of green space? The other misconception was that the change is that there's some large windfall. Granted, there is a significant reduction in pervious surface as well as other infrastructure costs. But the purpose of this is that's not what's driving this. In our funding world, our development fee is based on 6% of the total development costs. So in theory, if there was a savings, it reduces our development fee. In actuality, we have a budgeted funded amount, and that entire amount will be spent, whether it's on roads or other improvements on the property. But there's no windfall to us in terms of the plan change. This is really about an opportunity to do some additional conservation. And to answer your question, when we first put this in, we were under a pretty tight deadline, and to do a PRD where you have a binding site plan is a much more time-consuming and laborious process. So it was much easier just to go for the straight the R4 zoning. That was a much more straightforward process, and we really hadn't considered it. It was actually my idea. In the process, after we got funded, we were looking at this and looking at, I've done conservation easement development myself on some other personal properties, and what we were, looked at that and said, we've got an opportunity to save some woodlands and have something that kind of mirrors what we're doing on Carmichael Commons, where we cut out a 4-acre park and had a condensed version of development for the townhomes. And this would kind of mirror that, where you're again taking part of the site and preserving that also.
Are there any questions for Greg at this moment? If not, thanks, Greg. Anybody here to speak against this change?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. I was at the planning and zoning hearing when this first came up before them, and I think it is important to note that planning and zoning voted unanimously to not approve, not recommend this change. And one of the concerns they had was that condensing these homes would create almost an apartment-like feel or a townhome-like feel, because the lots at 1/10 of an acre are so small that it doesn't allow sufficient room for people to have family gatherings, for kids to have a birthday party in the yard. If you're talking 10-foot setbacks, rear setbacks, you can't do that. The lots are just far too small. Another thing that really hasn't been mentioned, to my knowledge, is, except of course it's in the staff report, but the reduction in the size of the homes. Originally, a 1-bedroom home was going to be 950 feet. Now in Site Plan 2, it's down to 767 feet, or 20% smaller. A 2-bedroom home is 25% smaller. A 3-bedroom home is 24% smaller. And of course, the lot size is 60% smaller. I understand the idea about green space and conservation of green space. And yes, the original site plan does require a bit more road, a bit more of the infrastructure. But I don't think that the benefit outweighs of reducing that infrastructure, that hard surface road, outweighs the benefit to the people who will be living there of having larger yards. Like I said, the yards are really too small for children to play in. You're talking about 3-bedroom units here, 2-bedroom units. It is geared towards families, or principally towards families. You can't accommodate family gatherings. And if you look at the site plan, the driveways are so close together. First of all, there's not supposed to be any street parking. That was brought out at the planning and zoning. How does grandma even come over to visit the grandchildren? You can't park on the street, and if the lots are this small, there's not going to be room for visitor parking. How do the aunt and uncle come by on Sunday afternoon to see the family and have a place to park there? Also, when the houses are this close together, you're going to have tensions that arise from neighbors. Somebody's gonna be upset about the teenager next door playing music or, you know, playing basketball out in the yard or leaving bikes in the yard, that kind of thing. The benefits of condensing it really flow to the developer. It reduces their cost, and I hear that the costs are fixed and it's all gonna be spent. So why do we want to spend it in a way that's not gonna benefit the tenants of these houses? At P&Z, the developer did acknowledge that approval of this application to reduce these lot sizes to 1/10 of an acre would enhance their bottom line. The improved bottom line doesn't lower the rent for tenants. The developer explained this to both the council during the previous hearing and to planning and zoning when this came before them. The project is funded through the low-income housing tax credit, and the rental rate is set as a percentage of the average median income from Morgan County. So the rent's gonna be the same, but approving this just means that tenants are gonna be paying the same amount of rent for a 25% smaller home, 20 to 25%, depending on whether it's 1 bedroom, 2, or 3. The argument for greater green space, the last time I checked, yards are green space too. And, you know, it may not be original timber, but it's green space that benefits families and gives families a place to do some outdoor activities with their other family members. We need affordable housing in Morgan County. I know that. And I think this is a great project if done the right way. But I don't see a reason that the people who are ultimately going to live in this development should be crammed closer together in smaller homes just to preserve or reduce development cost and provide a little bit less impervious surface. Thank you.
Are there anyone else here to speak against? And of course, we have minutes left. Is there anyone else here to speak for? If not, this public hearing is closed. Correct? Yes. Yeah, you can.
Yes, regarding the house size, that doesn't change. That's the size that was funded in the application, and that is not a change that is being brought about by the rezone. Whether or not the rezone is approved, those are the approved housing sizes. And if I recall correctly, they're actually a little bit larger than the equivalent units at Carmichael Commons, which is also funded through the same program.
Thank you. If I could ask you a question, Molly, do we have homes in our city, like Rose Cottage, other places that they, Walker Rose Lane, Town Walk Circle, Marcus Hill, and Candle Lane? Are these lots sort of similar to those lots where they're planning to build, or?
Under existing zoning R4, all of those that you mentioned, I think you said Walker Rose, Town Walk, Candler Lane, 0.25, the existing zoning is larger than at 0.25.
Sorry, say that again?
Of existing zoning, how it currently sits on the land right now, what they can build tomorrow is 0.25 acres. So those are larger lots than you mentioned Walker Rose, Town Walk, Candler Lane. You can see those up there on that table. The site plan one, the initial site plan that was provided at 0.10 acre lot size is smaller than all of those. And then the site plan two, that aggregate 0.16 acre lot size is kind of right there in the middle. A little larger than the original site plan for Town Walk Circle, smaller than Candler Lane, lot size.
So I guess what I'm hearing you say then is that if we stick with just the R4, then we get the full 0.25 acres lot size.
That is the minimum requirement.
Okay.
Yes.
And otherwise, then, it is the .10 and the .16 are basically pretty much smaller than the other existing subdivisions.
No,
Oh, sorry.
yeah, so you can see up here on this, right under PRD prior farm site plan 1 at 0.10 acre average lot size is 0.03 acres smaller than Walker Rose Lane is currently. The site plan 2 at 0.16 acres, it's right in the middle. So it's smaller than Candler Lane, a little larger than Walker Rose and the original site plan for Town Walk Circle.
So, so that's, okay. So what, for example, Walker Rose Lane is how many houses?
7.
Yeah.
And the acreage size?
It's an aggregate of 0.13 acres.
No, but the entire
Oh, the entire development,
subdivision
that
is
I don't know
on-
off the top of my head.
Right, okay.
But it's,
It's 1 acre.
yeah.
And Town Walk Circle, now, you said the original site plan, but we've approved something different. Is that what
That
I'm
is correct,
understanding?
yes.
So shouldn't we be looking at what's approved as opposed to what's original?
I think it was just looking at all of the things that you have seen before you and approved in the past is what we were looking at.
Okay, but, all right. But except what's coming on, okay, apples to apples. So Town Walk Circle is 11 houses and 4 small apartment buildings with 4 to 5 units each on 4.5 acres. So that's sort of 11 plus some. And and what is it? Candler Lane
Mhm.
is 19 houses on close to 5 acres,
Mhm.
all right? And so if we move to either the .1 acre or the .16 acre, that would be 40 houses on how many acres?
16.97, so
No.
almost 17
Mm-mm.
acres.
No, that's the entire lot.
Oh,
But we
right.
would be building, if we go with that lot size, what does that?
Well, I think also what's important to note here is that none of those, and the reason I quote the entire area and not just the buildable area is that unlike any of these, the buildable area is the full lot, right? So, but for prior farms, you do have to take into consideration that green space that's being preserved as part of the full lot size. Does that make sense? Candler Lane, there's no benefit to, there's no green space set aside for those lots on those
That's right.
parcels.
I understand.
So
Yes.
you can't, that's not a really apples to apples situation if you're only looking at the buildable area, because Candler Lane doesn't have any associated green space that was set aside for it.
Right, but in this case, okay, I get that, and I'm totally with you on
Yeah.
that, but I still feel like it's a little, in my mind, forgive the word, because I'm losing, I don't have a better word right now, I want to say duplicious, I don't really mean that, but I do mean it's a little tricky, because we're looking at .1 of an acre that I basically am living on, that's what I live on, that's my space, that's my yard space. Now, I might have 5 acres of woods.
Right.
That's not doing me any good when I go out my door and walk 3 feet to my car, because that's all the space I have. I may have, let's see, that would be an additional 2 more acres. If we go with the .16, there's just 2 more acres that aren't tied to my lot that are out there. Again, in my daily living life to life, that's not green space necessarily. I mean, that's green space out there, and I get that, but, I'm not benefiting from that on a daily basis.
And I think also the point I heard
necessarily.
you making was that the development size itself is different in these scenarios. Walker Rose is a much smaller development comparatively, is,
Well, actually, they all are, so for me, it's a little scary to think about 16 full acres and yet taking, all of this development and of 40 houses, which is a lot, and throwing it on basically it comes to 5 acres, so we're taking that. So, again, I know that in the staff report, then you also reference per house, it averages out to .42 acres per house, except that's, up to me, that's not even apples, that's not apples to apples. When you look at small lot residential, which is .5 acre, I get that whole space, I live on that
Yeah.
space. So I mean, I guess, and again, forgive me, it just seems, it's tricky to me. It's something I think we have to look really closely at, because
And that's why PRDs come before you, because they are
yeah.
a little bit tricky.
Yeah, and I appreciate
Yeah,
that.
Yeah.
And thank you for all that you've done in putting all the
Yeah,
tables together
absolutely.
too. I appreciate that.
Are there any more discussion from, thank you, Molly, any more discussion from my council members? And just one question, we talk about Walker Rose Lane and Town Walk Circle, County Lane and Markham's Hill, and but these houses being so close together, I know Molly, you've just got back here probably for maybe a month, a couple of months. Have you heard Monica say, or anybody say that with those houses as close as they are, there have been consultation between families living that close together, or?
Could you ask that question one more time?
Have you heard it, Monica, anyone say that there has been consultation with families living those houses being that close together, and
I haven't heard of any examples within Madison, or elsewhere where I have specifically heard about conversation about families, family feuds happening because they're that close together. Doesn't mean it doesn't happen, it's just not something I have heard of.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Sure.
May I?
Sure.
The only one that really relates to that question, and it's a really good one, I appreciate that, but it's Walker Rose. It's the only one that's tight like that with 7 houses, but it's just 7 houses. So you have those people that are living on top of each other of 7 houses. If you're looking at, first of all, on Town Walk Circle, it hadn't even started yet, so we can't answer that because we don't know what that's like living there. And when we look at Candler Lane, those houses sit on anywhere from 0.1 of an acre to over 1/4 of an acre. So those lot sizes are really much better. They don't really aren't comparable to the size, the tightness, or the closeness of this subdivision. And further, Markham's Hill, which has 20 houses, 11 of those are on 1/4 acre or more. So over half of them sit on more of 1/4 acre, and the others sit on of smaller than that, but they're also spaced over 6 acres. So that's 20 houses, so that's half the size of this development on even more acreage than these houses would be. Does that make sense?
It makes sense.
Oh, yeah.
It does. But I was going to ask the question also, but neither one of these developments have a play area. Is that right? Where the kids can play?
Not in Walker Rose.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys was going to build a play area for the kids, for family, a play area for family. Sure.
Yes, I believe one of the site plans will show there's a community building that has, a computer center, and I think it calls out everything in here. Up in the very top northern part up there, right there. Yeah, so if you zoom in, there'll be a gathering, a covered pavilion right there, a grills, and then a playground. I think 6, I believe, is the playground. If you back down just a little bit, you'll probably be able to read the labels. Yeah. Yeah, so there's the community building, computer center, exterior gathering, covered gathering area, and there'll be grills, like I said, around there, and then the playground is 6.
Thanks.
May
Quick
I?
question. Oh, yes,
Oh, I'm sorry. Go for it, Rick.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Sure, go ahead.
Greg, and that was not in the original, those amenities, the community home and the playground and the covered area in the
No,
in
they
the
are-
R4.
Yeah, that's pretty standard for any of the LIHTC funding.
Okay, that is in there already.
Yes, similar type of amenities also next door at Carmichael. But yes, that was always in the proposal.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Sure,
may I ask
sure.
Mr. Baird one more question as
Yes.
well? So when you were referring to the house sizes
Yes,
that we were looking at, which was something like, let's say the one bedroom was 700 and something, 60 square feet or whatever.
right.
On this initial proposal that we have, that I thought that this is the one, in fact, that when we approved the R4 and the houses to be built, there was, in fact, I have it here now, it lists the houses as, for example, the one bedroom at 950 and the two bedroom at 1,300, which have now been reduced. So where did that reduction come with the Site 1 and Site 2 plans?
No, it came before that. It actually was, that was the size that we decided upon before we put the application in. So once we put the application in, it has all of this for LIHTC funding. You're locked into, this is what you're going to build. So the costs on the low-income housing tax credit, there's a reason no one builds single family and everyone builds multifamily, because the cost to build single family are so much more. So everyone will build multifamily instead. So in order to make the funding work, those were the square footages, but they, if I'm correct, they still exceed your minimum requirements for the Madison minimum requirements for multifamily.
Okay, and so I get that. So where did these numbers come from? Why did I think that these numbers that I'm seeing were originally part of our first approval?
That was very early on when we first started putting the application together, and I think we submitted those to the GIC, and that was the original
I see, okay.
that we came up with, and then we did, costing on it and realized that there's no way
Yeah.
to make that work. So we adjusted it before the application went in May of last year, and so all of that information was generated early in the process.
Okay,
And then it changed with the application, and that was what was funded. That was in that. So whether or not we're doing the conventional or not, those will be the house sizes.
perfect, understood, thank you.
Okay.
If I could ask a question, if I'm not mistaken, if what we approved as R4, if we had approved that as a PRD, you would not, regardless of what the low-income housing tax credit comes up with, you wouldn't have been able to change those site plans if it was a PRD, am I right? But because it was an R4, you are able to change what we thought we approved?
That would be, yes. You could, I guess, technically change it if you came back and asked for a change of the PRD. That wouldn't be locked in by the tax credit program. The site plan is not binding for the tax credit program. That's binding by the municipality. So if we had rezoned it for that application, it would have been just the same as the outcome of if you rezoned it tonight.
So if I understand it correctly, Greg, what you're saying is that whether this project, Pryor Farm, stays as an R4 or it goes to the .1 acre PRD or the .16 acre PRD, the house dimensions are going to remain the same for
That's
all
correct.
three of those options?
That's correct. And I would say one thing that maybe hasn't been discussed when you've been talking about some of the other developments that have been approved is what is the size of the footprint on those relative to these footprints. So that impacts how much extra space you have in between your neighbors and et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks,
Did
Greg.
Mr. Mayor, may I
Sure, yes, sir.
point out, kind of talking what Greg's talking about, when you're talking about .01, that's 4,356 square feet, 4350. When you start looking at the size of the houses that are proposed now, it's probably gonna be an average around 1,200 square feet. When you start looking at the four that are here and 20 there, so it's gonna be about 67% green space around that house. So there's a lot of green space, more than you would think, around that house. And the move today is I'm sorry, everybody doesn't want 1,800 or 1,500 square feet. And so I think, but, you know, 3-bedroom, what size is it gonna be, 1,200, 1,300? It was 1,500, but now, I think you said 13?
Yeah,
Okay, and then the 2-bedroom goes down, so it's gonna be an average of 1,100 per square foot of impervious surface, and the rest of it's gonna be green space that you can play on. And young families, they can't afford to go any higher than that. And the fact that what you're offering, and Mr. Mayor, I'm gonna leave this to the rest of the discussion, but I just wanna point out that those lots are gonna have pretty good green space. Once you start to lower that footage, square footage, they're still gonna get the quality on the inside. So I just wanted to point that out. Thank you,
sir.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Are there any more discussion from our council?
I'll just, if I may, just quick, I appreciate
Sure,
what
go
you
ahead.
said, Ed. But the family's gonna afford, whether we stick with the R4 or not, it's the same affording. There's no price change, there's no, it's still affording it because it's workforce housing, it's all staggered. But if you look what the setbacks are, you can talk about the space, but it's still 10 feet to your neighbor on either side, 15 feet to the back, and what's the, I don't know, what is it, 20 feet to the front or something? So it's not, whatever the footprint is, you still have, the dimensions are set for the setbacks. The setbacks are all there.
I got you.
Anyway, yeah, okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, appreciate it.
Sure, thank you. And I'd just like to just make a comment, and I'm sure our council will go ahead and will vote on this tonight, but I think maybe after building Canaan Crossing, I think our staff said that there was probably 190 applicants who wanted a place to live, and they didn't. And sometimes, and I know all of our council members have their own mindset as the way they would like to vote, how they would like to see things. But I think we have to look at the families who are going to be living in these homes, and we have to see a need better than convenience. I remember when I was growing up, I grew up in an old country home on a farm. 2 bedrooms, maybe a 5-room house, 7 children. And in that 5-room house, 7 children, we survived. And if we survived then, we can still survive now. And I think we have to look at, we talk about affordable homes and what can we do to bring people into this kind of setting. And we all know that there's a need in every community, every city that I go to, struggle with workforce housing. And in order to have that in your community, it's left up to the elected officials to make sure that families in your community have a roof over their head and a decent place to live. And I don't know if we only live where we live and doesn't or is not concerned about where other people live, I think we're being very, very selfish. And we talk about the length or the square footage of the home. But do you know how many families would love to live in a home? It may be small. And I've always said it's not how small it is, but it's how much love in that home that's generated from the family. And I think sometimes we have to look beyond our interests and look what's good for our community, what's good for those families, those mothers who are working so hard to have a decent place to live, whether it's renting or buying, something that they can afford. We've had a gig team in our city for a while, and this is what our gig team works so hard for, to make workforce homes in our community affordable, to make life for families better. And I believe this, when families have a better home and a better place to live, they feel safe as to where they are, and it's even more safe in the community in which we live.
Mr. Mayor, may I?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate those comments, and this one's, difficult because we're struggling with, we've got 3 options to look at, but fortunately, no matter what option is voted, I mean, he's vested in R4 rights now, and he can move forward with 40 homes and for 40 families, no matter if we go with that one or either PRD 1 or PRD 2. So that's some positive thoughts on what's going to happen,
Thank you,
we'll
sir.
happens.
Any more comments from my council?
Well, we don't, probably need to get a motion on that.
Well, we will.
Yeah.
We get a motion to approve or deny.
I move, if I may, I move to deny.
For the sake of discussion, I will second the motion.
Are there any more discussion?
Yeah, I've got some comments if I could, now that we have
Sure, go
a
ahead.
motion on the floor. I think it's, let me just say that I'm a fan of Rhoda Cooper and what Parallel has done, and I've had an involvement in every one of their projects here, including the beginning of my career, if you will, as on the HPC approving design elements for Silver Lakes. After that, I approved Canaan Crossing. I voted to approve the PRD for the mixed residential units right next door. I also voted to approve this project, which, you're very eloquent, Mr. Mayor, in professing the need for affordable housing in Madison. I agree completely. That's why I voted to approve this 40 houses of important affordable workforce housing in R4. So I'm a fan, but I've got a few problems about this particular change. Number one kind of centers on the history of the property. This property was zoned estate residential. That's the largest standard class of residential lots we have in Madison in our zoning. That's 1.5 acres per house. But because I felt the importance of affordable housing, I was willing to go from 1.5 acres down to 1/4 acre for this project. That's pretty dramatic shrinking of that requirement. And I do understand affordable housing is so important, and it's probably not realistic in this day and age, certainly in Morgan County, to expect to be able to achieve affordability with 1.5 acre lot. That's just not, I realize that. I've kind of lowered my standards to think, well, as much as we might want that zoning, it's not going to help affordability. There's just no way you can build an affordable house on acreage that large. But that was kind of my thinking in reducing it to the R4. Let me just say this PRD application, there's no legal precedent for that. I understand that completely. Each PRD, planned residential district, is kind of unique to itself, and we can make, on the council, we can make the rules for each one of those districts. So there's no legal precedent, but there is an example precedent as proven by our own planning department report, where they cite 1, 2, 3, 4 other PRDs showing that smaller lot size has been done before. I guarantee you, if this is approved at a .1 acre, for example, the next time someone comes to us with a very small lot development plan, we will be the next, Pryor Farms will be the next property on that list of examples at .1 acres or .16. Now, so that concerns me. I don't think it's really in the best interest of the city to have lots that small. We hit a little bit earlier with some of Bessie's comments. It's really hard, I think, to compare some of the ones that were up there for PRDs, like Walker Road, 7 houses. Candler Lane, I think it was 18 lots or 19 lots. It's actually, I think, 17 houses because a couple of them bought vacant lots next door. Is that really this, can you compare that type of a PRD concept to 40 houses and whatever might come afterwards with some other development of 60 houses, or it concerns me. The green space benefit, I happen to be, I'm the liaison from this council to our Green Space Commission. I'm a believer in protecting and increasing green space. I think it's important. It's one of the things that makes us in Madison kind of a unique community, and I think it's important. However, some of the benefits of that in this particular project seem to me to be very possibly outweighed by the downside of creating very small lot neighborhoods with as many as 40 houses. Now, I will say the first plan that came up at .1 acres, that was going to be a hard sell for me. That just really seemed like too extreme of a shrinkage. .16, you're making it harder on me. I will say, I've struggled with this. I've looked at it. You know, I think affordable housing is, to Mayor's point, is so important, but .16 is heading there. But then I've come around to the point where I really feel now, unless I can get persuaded otherwise, that we can do our 40 affordable houses on the quarter acre. We can protect our integrity of our zoning. We cannot set an example for further shrinkage of the rest of the acreage to other future developers. We can kind of say, okay, we've made an exception. We've gone from 1.5 acre R state residential down to R4, but that's really, I'm not comfortable going too much farther than that from speaking for myself.
Mr. Mayor,
Sure.
man, please.
Go ahead.
I think as we look at all of this, we have to look at the future as well. I'm looking at this as this is good for the city and not bad. We have got to start, we've had discussions here on what it costs to maintain a road as we end up taking it over. I think it was $16 a foot. All that's, I'm assuming that most of the reduction in non-permeable surface was in roads. And when you start to do that, we're going to take that over, Mr. Mayor, and we're going to be responsible in the future. So when we say that we're not in favor of that, we want more roads, it's all going to come back to us. The push today is to try to design things that are economically sound for the city, for the people that live there. And this trend is coming. And we need to figure out what we're going to do with it if we're going to continue to insist on, more roads, more whatever. We need to understand that we're going to create a debt structure for our citizens that, it's simple math. It's simple math. And we need to do smart planning. We need to do, and what's been offered here, offering some great benefits. You say, well, the park, all that stuff, that's great. I'd love to live in a community that had a park. My kids could ride down on their bikes. They could go there and do what they want to do. Clubhouse, and I know we can still do that with quarter acres. But the amount of green space with the stormwater issues that we have, what's this gonna benefit our stormwater? We just done a bunch of sampling on stormwater. We got hundreds of thousands of dollars we're looking at spending. Do we want to create another problem with stormwater? With the increase in the green space, it's going to minimize what we have to do. So I think we need to start to think with objectivity instead of subjectivity. We have got to look at all the numbers. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any more comments from my council? If not, that's a motion and second on the floor. All in favor of this zoning change?
No,
Nope.
they-
Motion to deny.
Motion to deny.
Yeah, in favor of denying.
Raise your hand, those who would like to deny. 1, 2, 3. In favor of approving? Let the
Same
record,
hand that went up
all
last
in- let the record show the vote to deny. 3 council members vote no, 1 council member vote yes. We'll move on. The legal matters? No legal matters, Jay? No legal. Okay.
Oh, yeah, I'm trying to grab up for Gary.
No legal matters, Jay?
No, sir.
Unfinished business, or not unfinished business, we need to discuss. New business? Public comments? No comments from the public. This time, this meeting, we get a motion to go into executive session to discuss legal matters.
Could you mind announcing our Thursday event, Mr. Mayor?
Yes,
We
sir.
might have
Thanks for
people
bringing
paying
that to
attention.
our attention. The State of the City address will be on Thursday evening at 6 o'clock at the Madison Morgan Cultural Center. And we would love to invite all of you to come to support this event. Jay, you have anything for executive session?
No, sir.
You don't have anything, John? Okay, good. All right, we won't go into executive session. No public comments? This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.